In Jehovah, I shall not be moved. Anchored in Jehovah, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be. I shall not be moved. I shall not be. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me. I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be. I shall not be moved. I shall not be. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved.
All right. Welcome to the Laycast. Glad to see each one of you here. And tonight we are in chapter 39 of Genesis. And tonight's episode, we have...
In tonight's episode
of our mini-series.
Of studying Joseph.
5-year mini-series. We have, I can read it. Overseas in the house of Potiphar, tempted, then framed by Potiphar's wife, Joseph is imprisoned. And so this first section is the introduction section, and we will.
And here we go.
There.
We return to the story of Joseph after the interlude of chapter 38, which we classified as one of the worst chapters in the Bible, because it certainly tells a sordid story of the man Judah. And we'll discover that Joseph is altogether different from Judah. I have always felt that Joseph and Benjamin got a real deal of teaching, instruction, and personal attention that the other 10 boys did not receive. These seemed to be the only 2 boys in whom Joseph was interested. Because of the hatred and animosity of Joseph's brothers, he was sold into slavery and then taken to the land of Egypt. To be in a foreign land and sold into slavery is a very dreary prospect for a 17-year-old boy. There's certainly nothing in the outward aspect of things to bring any encouragement to his heart. Joseph seems to be more or less a hard-luck boy. Even in the land of Egypt, just as these things would begin to move smoothly for him, something else would happen. Of course, it always happened for a purpose, even though it was a difficult one for Joseph to see. Now, there is no person in the Old Testament in whose life the purpose of God was more clearly seen than Joseph. The providence of God is manifest in every detail of his life. The hand of God is upon him, and the lending of the Lord evident. But Joseph is the one patriarch to whom God did not appear directly. According to the text of Scripture, God appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but he did not appear to Joseph. Yet the direction of God in his life is more clearly seen than any other. He's in the Old Testament example of Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to them who are called according to his purpose. Joseph himself expressed it in a rather vivid language. And it was, I misread that, all things work together for the good of them that love God instead of the Lord. At the death of their father, Joseph's brothers felt that Joseph might turn on them So they came asking for mercy. He told them he had no grudge against them at all and said, "But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring pass this day and to save much people alive." Genesis 50:20. Now everything seemed to go wrong for him, and the outward aspect was dark. It looked terrible. Each event was a step bringing to fruition God's purpose in this man's life. My friend, in our own lives, we need to reckon on the fact that whom the Lord loveth, he chastens and scourgeth.
Yes, Katie.
And every son whom he receiveth. Hebrews 12:6. If we are the children of God, in the will of God, we can have the assurance of God that nothing comes to us without his permission. God works all things together for good to him, to them that love him, even as misfortune, heartbreaks, sufferings, all are for our good and his glory. There is a hedge about every child of God. Nothing gets through it without a permission of God. You remember that when Satan wants to test Job, he said to God, "Hast not thou made a hedge about him and his house and all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land." Job 1:10. Satan asked God to let the hedge down. Even if Satan gets God's permission to test us, still all things will work for our good. Dr. Torrey used to say that Romans 8:28 is a soft pillow for a tired heart. And someone else has put it like this: God nothing does, nor suffers to be done, but what we would ourselves, if we but could see through all events of all the things as well as he. There is another aspect of life of Joseph which should be an encouragement to every child of God. None of God's children today have ever had a direct revelation from God. Some modern false prophets claim to the contrary, that God has not appeared directly to any person today. It's for our encouragement that God did not appear to Joseph directly, because we can still know that he is leading and directing us.
And so that's J. Vernon McGee's commentary on, well, it's actually the introduction. Now we're going to move on to section verses 1 through 7.
Now let's follow this young man, Joseph, and see what's going to happen to him.
And this section is entitled Overseer in the House of Potiphar.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. Genesis 39, verse 1. This fine-looking young man, 17 years old, would sure be a prize as a slave in the market. He was bought by Potiphar, who was the captain of the guard. Potiphar was in the military. He had his office in the Pentagon of that day, and he was part of the brass, a prominent official. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Genesis 39:2. Immediately, when he gets into the home of Potiphar, who's an officer of Pharaoh, it's obvious that the Lord is with Joseph. Blessing came to that home when Joseph came. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord had made all that he did to prosper in his hand. Genesis 39:3. Now, life is great up until this point. You'd like to add that they all lived happily ever after. They didn't. This is not a story, it's reality. The child of God is going to encounter temptation, trouble, and problems in this world. And that is going to happen to Joseph. Joseph found grace in his sight, And he served him, and he made him overseer of his house and all that he had put it into his hand. Genesis 39:4. Just think of this. Because of the way Joseph serves, he's elevated to the position of handling all the material substance, the chattels, and probably even the real estate of Potiphar. The man trusted him with everything, and it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. Genesis 39:5-6. Potiphar trusted Joseph so much, he never even demanded an accounting. But he didn't have to hire a CPA to go over the books. He believed in the integrity of this young man. The only thing that Potiphar worried about as an officer of Pharaoh is that he should please Pharaoh and do a good job there. He let Joseph handle his personal affairs. When he sat down at the table, food was put before him. That's all he was interested in because he trusted this young man. Did you want to say this?
This section is entitled Tempted, Then Framed by Potiphar's Wife.
Now, notice what happens. It comes to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. Genesis 39:7. Potiphar had given him the full run of his home, and Joseph had charge of everything. While Joseph was busy, Potiphar's wife was also busy. She was busy scheming that Joseph was a handsome young man. It might be that Potiphar was an old man, because it was generationally the custom in that day for older men to have a young wife. She sees Joseph and she attempts to entice him.
And so that's J. Vernon McGee's commentary on verses 1-7. Now we're going to look at Chuck Smith's commentary on verse 1-7. The Lord was with Joseph. This is the summative of his life. He talks about the fiddler on the roof, that I know I am the chosen people. Would you mind choosing someone else, is what the fiddler on the roof said for a while. Being a Christian is not a divine community from immunity from problems.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has problems. The Christ rest and unchristians. Jesus gives us a way out. Our victory over our trials. Every handsome. It means goodly. That he is very handsome. And it's about his physical appearance.
Okay.
And I noticed J. Vernon talked about, that's what we don't understand the custom of that day is that men probably when they were in their 40s married young women, and so this Potiphar's wife was probably about the same age as Joseph.
Oh, it's Joseph. Yeah.
Right. And so we don't think of it that way.
No.
It was the same way with, we were talking about Shuah, the youngest son of Judah by the Canaanite woman Shuab. Shuab.
Yeah.
She had to wait for him to grow up, but that probably meant that wait until he was 40 years old and out on his own and had his own flocks and herds and tent.
So she probably was the same age as him.
She was probably the same age.
Okay, see, I thought she was way older.
Right, and so that's the misnomer is we we don't live in that kind of world. But what it was men would get established and then marry,
Right.
a young girl
Yeah.
to be their wife, and it's almost like they were raising them with the kids.
Yeah.
And that's why that we see, Joseph is dead by the time Jesus is grown, and that's
because he was old.
Because he was a lot older than Mary, probably. And so we don't see that, but if you study the words, then you understand more of what's going on. We today would think that that's horrible, but that was what that they.
That's
how
what they did.
That's how.
So she was probably
it was
15 and he
designed.
was 40 or 40 something.
That was the idea. Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that, but
Well, like 25 years. Well, I was just thinking in my mind.
But yes, a damsel is probably 14 to 16 years old, and these
Today
guys,
he would be called something different.
yes, he would be, and they would not be able to marry until they reached an age of where that they were stable in life.
Yeah,
that's the idea, where they can afford
a wife and children. Yep.
And that be able to support a wife and children, and so that's what you go over there today, and it's still they're allowed to have as many wives as they can support. If they can have a house and pay for the house and upkeep for that wife and house, then they can have that wife.
I think that's maybe where the faith now that people have, that the religion is the reason they think they can have a bunch of wives and that they can have a 12-year-old, 15-year-old.
Well, it's still part of their custom.
Well, I'm talking about the people here, not over there.
Well, I know, but they brought their custom over here.
The Mormons.
The Mormons.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of the Muslims.
I was thinking of Mormons.
Mormons,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
And the travelers, they do that. They will pick a wife. They will have
like gypsies.
They will have they're travelers. They'll have like a beauty show pageant.
Oh,
and the men will pick their wives.
I've
seen they won't marry them then, but they
pick them from little girls.
Yeah, pick them as little girls. Arranged marriages. It comes out of the arranged marriages. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
So we don't really understand the Bible, the customs of the day. But that's one of them.
Well, if a man was 40 and he wanted to marry a woman around his age, he wouldn't be able to find one because she was married off when she was 15.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then she would be she wouldn't be able to have children.
Right. I don't know they had children at 90 years old back then.
True. He needs to marry a 90-year-old woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm just kidding around. It's
so
okay.
That concludes our section verses 1 through 7. Now let's go on to section verses 8 through 10.
But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, my master would not want what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. So there's none greater in the house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee. Because thou art his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Genesis 39, 8 and 9. Now, do you notice that this young man is serving God in all of this? When he went down to Egypt, it was a land filled with idolatry, just as much as Babylon was. It was a land of idolatry. Joseph maintained a testimony for the living and true God with a high moral standard. When this woman enticed him, he said, "My master has turned everything over to me, but you're his wife." Notice what a high viewpoint Joseph had on marriage. You see, God has given marriage to all mankind, and when a person begins to despise the marriage vows, he's beginning to despise God. My friend, a man who will break his marriage vows will generally break any vow he has made to God. It's been interesting for me to note my ministry that a divorced person, that is, one who gets divorced because he or she has been unfaithful, generally will get as far from God as any person possibly can. I've seen that happen again and again. Joseph here is attempting to be true to God with a high viewpoint he has. Yet look at what's going to come and what's going to come to pass because he attempts to serve the living and true God. And it came to pass as she spake to Joseph day by day that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to even be with her. Genesis 39:10. This man Potiphar is an officer of Pharaoh and would be away from home a great deal. Maybe he was away from home too much. This woman didn't tempt Joseph only one time, but again and again and again. It was a constant temptation to him. Yet this young man, he did not yield. You can imagine that there begins to well up in her boiling resentment against Joseph. The old Brahmin has it. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Believe me, she's going to take revenge on Joseph.
And so that's J. Vernon McGee's commentary on verses 8 through 10. Now let's look at Chuck Smith's. Joseph is in his early 20s, maybe by this time. The, bodily maturation and body drives, if you can imagine, they're powerful, they're normal for a man of that age. And so, the daily you have this woman pressuring him to go to bed with her. It'd be easy for Joseph to succumb, and understanding who we were kept him was understanding who he was kept him pure. There we go. They do it all the time. He could have said everyone is doing it. As a child of God, there are things I cannot do. Does not matter what the world around me is doing. No one will see us.
Right.
Our let's see us. No, God knows, or no one will know. God knows.
Right.
And so Psalms 51, if you remember, I only have I sinned and done this evil, this wickedness in thy sight. You need to know who you are, recognize it, and God presents with you all, is present with you all the time. How can we add this add more sins to Christ? Of course, I don't know that we can do that, but but if you thought of it that way, that we're adding more sins to Christ if we sin.
Oh boy.
And so
that's not good.
He starts avoiding her. And so J. Vernon alludes there, that she is an unhappy woman. And Chuck Smith has alluded that he's a eunuch in working for the Pharaoh. So he may not be able to have kids. And so that might be frustrating with her as well. That's what the eunuchs were they would, of course, then he goes off and he's a eunuch for the Pharaoh, so he's employed in keeping his harem happy. And so there could be some jealousy there too. And so you have a lot more maybe going on there than you realize. Now, Chuck Smith here talked about um, that Psalms 51. Of course, but I thought of something when I read it, but that that we can't keep things secret anyway. You need to know who you are. It was Charles Stanley that once said that to sin is to act out character, as a Christian. And so if we know who we are, we're not going to sin. Our character would be to not sin. I always liked the illustration of little Lord Fauntleroy. He was an heir to a European kingdom. And they come over here in the gutters of New York and find him living not necessarily on the streets, but he's living in poverty. And because his father was the prince, he ran from his princehood. And
he was in the pig lot, huh?
Well, his son was living in poverty in New York, and he takes him back, and he's the heir to the throne. And that's kind of like what we're doing when we're living in the pig lot. We're living in poverty on the streets, whenever that we're actually heirs to the throne. And so we don't often think of it that way. But that's how I teach it in the jails and prisons. But anyway. So that concludes section verses 8 through 10, and now let's move on to section verses 11 through 20.
And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do business, and there was none of the men in the house there within. She caught him by his garment, said, "Lie with me." And he left his garment in her hand and fled, and got him out. Came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled, she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. Genesis 39:11 through 14. That just irks me that she would do that when he was a good guy. Things weren't so well.
Well, usually they're attracted to them because they're good guys.
I thought you said they were attracted because they were bad guys.
Okay. Well,
you've told me before that. Things weren't. I never was attracted to a bad boy, so things weren't so well between Potiphar and his wife. Notice she speaks of him in such a mean, degrading way. She said he brought in a Hebrew to mock them. In other words, the wife probably had been guilty of this before. The man whom I feel most sorry for is Potiphar. He's the sap if there ever was one. Possibly he suspected something all along. She's beginning now to cover up her tracks. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried, he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid upon his garment by her until his Lord came home. Genesis 39:15 through 16. Well, she's really going to play it up, ain't she? So here is the boy Joseph in his teens, down there alone in Egypt. He's being framed in the most dastardly manner. She brings this charge against Joseph to the other men. Her husband was away from home, so she has all the story built up to tell him when he arrives. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, This Hebrew servant which thou hast brought into us came in unto me and mocked me. Came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. Genesis 39:17 through 19. Am I reading through 21?
Flip to 20.
Okay.
It should be marked over there.
Yep, it's not. Right here's 20.
No,
so I read all the way
there.
over here?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. On the surface, it seems Potiphar believes her, but at least it made him angry at the moment. He was an officer in the army of Pharaoh and must have been pretty sharp to be among the brass, but he certainly was a stupid husband. It's my personal feeling that he recognized the kind of wife he had and thought the expedient thing was to throw Joseph into prison and forget the whole matter. I feel sorry for him, married to this woman. I'm of the opinion that she had been unfaithful many times before, and that Joseph was just another one in her series of conquest. Only it just didn't work with Joseph. She framed him.
And this section is entitled Joseph Imprisoned.
And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. Genesis 39 and 20. Now, this boy certainly had bad luck, is he not? There at home, he was a favorite of his father, wearing a coat of many colors. Then the next thing he knew, his brothers had taken off the coat and put him down in a pit. He hears them dickering with some tradesman, and then he's sold down to Egypt. He was only 17 years old, and I'm of the opinion that on the way down, after he got there, he spent many nights wetting the pillow with his tears. He certainly was homesick. Now he's getting along with this new position, just elevated to a high position because he's capable and he's a fine-looking young man. Then the wife of Potiphar attempts to lure him to commit sin. His high moral standard prevents him from yielding. As a result of that, she frames him. This poor boy just doesn't stand a chance. We need to remember that although Joseph had been elevated in his position, he's still a slave. Potiphar's wife would be like Caesar's wife. One just wouldn't dare say anything about her. Obviously, her word would be accepted. Poor Joseph. He doesn't need to even open his mouth. He's declared guilty before he can even make any kind of defense at all. He immediately finds himself put in prison, the prison where prisoners of Pharaoh were placed.
And so that concludes Jaber and McGee's commentary on section verses 20 through 20, 11 through 20.
Yeah.
And now let's look at
Chuck
Smith's commentary on verses 11 through 20. I was getting a little confused here.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's flees. In fleeing is actually courage and bravery. We often don't think of it that way, but to flee like this is exhibiting courage and bravery. You know, it's easy for a guy to just say, "I can't do this," and just like girls, same way. You know, just say, "I can't do this," and stop, no matter where you're at in the process. Chuck Smith says that his mom had this saying that she'd always teach him: "Is a dead fish can flow downstream. It's a live fish that swims upstream." And
okay.
It's hard to go uphill, so it's hard to go against the flow, but that's what you got to do if you're going to stay, if you're going to do the right thing. The running is the wisest, bravest thing to do. Let's see. And so we see that she screamed, I guess. Cried here means she screamed. The animosity, and we see the jealousy here because of Joseph's position. So, you know, you would think that she would be over the house and run and manage the house, but Joseph is managing the house, so she has a little bit of jealousy there too.
Potiphar knew he couldn't trust her, I bet. Is the reason.
She'd be buying all kinds of slaves.
Yes, she would. Be more slaves than they needed.
Yeah, so that concludes section verses 11 through 20. And now we're going to move on to the last section, which is section verse 21 through 23.
But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever he did there, he was the doer of it. So he actually got lifted up to be the warden of the prison.
Right. Everywhere he goes,
Everywhere.
he gets put in charge.
Yep.
And that's what you see with Christians.
Yes.
Like whenever I was working and Heather's working, they just put you up to the top and give you more responsibility because Christians have a good work ethic.
Absolutely.
Where people who aren't Christians, they could care less, and in fact they're trying to do the least they can, which is stealing, to get the most amount of money.
Chad did that too when he was at Lowe's.
Right.
He went boom.
I was thinking about that too last night with Chad as well.
He goes up and what he does.
Well, we're over. He went. After Lowe's, he's at Novellis, and he rose in Novellis as well. But it's because whenever I was working, it was kind of sad. All the secretaries, administrative assistants, is what we were called.
Yeah.
But that I was working with at Humana, they would spend all day playing on solitaire or something on their computer. And so I would go around, I'd be bored, so I'd be like, "You got anything for me to do?" So I'd do everybody else's filing and everything.
Made the day go by faster, didn't it?
I wanted something to do.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sit around and be bored all day.
I know.
And so it got them to looking bad. I understood after me, they fired all the administrative assistants and went down to like one for the whole office, one or two. And so
that's funny.
That's why they usually get mad at you when you're
if you do good.
Like, calm down. I mean, pretend you can't work.
Really? You're making us look bad, dude. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Genesis 39, 21, 23 through 23. The hand of God is obvious in this young man's life, but over against it are terrible things that happen. Now he finds himself in prison. How discouraging that would have been to an average person. But the interesting thing is that the Lord is with Joseph. Although he doesn't appear to him, he's had, as he had the other patriarchs, he shows him mercy. First, he causes the keeper of the prison to like him and trust him. Although Joseph is naturally a very attractive young man and has tremendous ability, the important thing to note is all of this would have come to naught had God not been with him. God is with him and leading him. All of these experiences are moving toward the accomplishment of a purpose in this young man's life. Now, Joseph recognized this, and it gave him a buoyancy, an attitude of optimism. The circumstances did not get him down. He lived on top of his circumstances. I have a preacher friend who tells me my problem is that the circumstances are always on top of me. I think many of us live that way. But Joseph was the one living on top of his circumstances. And the Lord was with him. He recognized the hand of God in his life, so he wasn't discouraged. Discouragement is one of the finest weapons that Satan has. Discouragement and disappointment. This young man seems to have surmounted all of his circumstances. He reminds us the passage in Hebrews. Now, no one chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, after it yieldeth a peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Hebrews 12 and 11. Certainly the chastening of the Lord is going to yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness in the life of this young man. The story of Joseph reveals that not every man has his price. Satan says that he does, but there have been several men whom Satan could not buy. Joseph was one of those. Job was another. The Apostle Paul was still another. Satan despises mankind. But these and many more are men who Satan found he could not buy. Is it the will of God that Joseph be in prison? Well, my friend, it's almost essential that he be there. We'll see that in the next chapter. Stay tuned for the next episode
of the 5-year saga.
Okay.
That was J. Vernon McGee's commentary on section verses 21 through 23. Now let me look at Chunk Smith's commentary on section verses 21 through 23. Wait a minute. This is worse than a Tijuana jail, and also the false charges. And
right.
So he's sold. He's sold out, imprisoned, and he's put into slavery. The Lord was with him. Good to know the Lord is with me, even in prison. And so God's hands are upon his life, whatever he had, whatever he did. God prospered it. And so that is the reading of God's Word tonight. Hope that you got a blessing out of it.
I did.
And yes, there's some interesting stories in here.
Yep.
Well, I guess the morbid one last chapter was interesting.
It was.
Well.
Yep, it really was.
And so it's you were listening to a reel the other day that was, the guy said that him and his wife they couldn't find a podcast to listen to, so they started listening to the Bible, and whenever they got home 2 hours later, they were still listening.
and sat in the driveway 30 more minutes while they finished it.
Oh, is that what it
Yep,
was?
even though they were at home.
Okay.
Because it was so wonderful and alive, So, I didn't realize, and I know this is going to make me sound like I don't know much about the Bible, but I didn't realize this was Joseph that raised Jesus.
No.
This is not.
No.
Okay, well, I thought we were talking about him.
I was, in that he was his age when he married.
Oh, okay. So this is not him.
No,
I was thinking I didn't know that.
This
but
is not him.
Wrong one.
They have the same name, but they're not the same person.
Okay.
Joseph is more of a type of Jesus.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was seeing no, it was on Moses. I forget where I saw it.
I remember you saying
somebody pointed out all the types, the similarities between. It was Moses. It wasn't Joseph that I was
thinking about
the other day. But anyway, Joseph is a type of Jesus too.
Yeah.
He's Jesus was sold out by his confidence, and he was and then
well, can you imagine being like this, Joseph, being tempted and all that and turning it away? Most people can't say that. Can't say that. So
no,
Joseph was special,
Right, and
very special,
especially in our day and time. We're so disappointed. We have this good Christian boy, that was in Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever, and we send him off to Frankfurt or Washington. He divorces his wife and votes for whoever will give him the most money.
Yeah, exactly.
And they sell out. So it's hard to find people in this day and time who could care less about money. It's more about your principles, standing on what you believe.
Yeah.
And you won't, no matter how much money they offer you, you won't you won't say you go contrary to what you believe, and and that's what there's. Maybe a handful. There was somebody that said there's probably a handful of people in the world, and I'm wondering if that might be the case. There's a handful of people in the world that would not sell out for anything. They will sell give you the truth no matter how much money that they're offered. I know one. I'm thinking of one. He claims he was offered $50 million a year and turned it down.
Turned it down.
Because they wanted him to stop talking.
I know he's probably got other sins, but I was very respectful of him for doing that.
Right, and so anybody who that will stand on their principles, stand for God, and not,
God and nobody else.
Not commit this sin, this evil, and run from it.
Yeah,
is somebody you have to admire. So many are doing that today. I mean, Brother Charlie used to talk about that there was an old church that thought there was nothing wrong with sleeping adultery. They were like they were all sleeping with each other. Yeah,
the church.
Yeah, that he went, I guess I don't know if he went and tried out for him, but somehow or another, he started talking to him, and they come to find out they were all sleeping with each other. It was just crazy, but but you see that a lot. A lot of people do not have a problem with that.
Wow, I got a big problem with it.
I know you do.
I have a big problem with it.
But it does explain why David said, I have sinned against thee only, because this is, if somebody can break that covenant, and we're in church covenant, because it's a blood covenant.
It is.
It's where Debbie is teaching us.
And we love that.
Marriage is a blood covenant, because of what happens whenever the man and the woman for the first time, there's blood involved.
Or intimacy.
How about that? Like that. And and so that creates a blood covenant. And say marriage is a blood covenant, and the only way you can get out of a blood covenant is to die.
Right.
That was the original intent. Was if you cheat on your wife, then the penalty is death. And so J. Vernon McGee says we'd have tombstones lined up all
everywhere
along the I-5 in LA.
But as far as me and you go,
but that's why
we'll be together till we're 89 and 96.
Right.
90 and 97.
Anyway,
I'm just being silly.
If there's no more comments or questions, I don't think that we received any.
I didn't see any come up
tonight, but we do encourage comments and questions.
Yes.
You can. We are a 501c3 company. You can reach us at Christ Recovery Ministry. We are at P.O. Box 336, Berea, Kentucky 40403. Yes. Did I say that right?
Uh-huh. For P.O. Box 336.
Yeah, and our phone number is, I was like, that's not my phone number.
No, it was not.
Our phone number is 859-339-7633. If you wish to opine, give us your name, your town, and if you wish to remain anonymous, and we will keep your anonymity and confidentiality.
Yes.
And so, and we will try to answer your question where we find it, and then look on the next Wakecast for the answer to your question. And all these people say, like, subscribe, ding-a-ling,
and a ding dong,
and share, and you guys don't do it anyway. So I'm not gonna.
Some of them do thumbs ups. We got a bunch of thumbs ups.
But I was, somebody was saying share with strangers.
Yeah, exactly.
With your contact list and strangers.
But yeah.
They do have millions of subscribers.
They
so
do.
It might work. But,
they do.
It doesn't seem to work for us. But I just
we're little.
I would like to have your comments. So
yes.
That would be enough for me.
Yes.
So with that, we say. Good night until we meet again.
Adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, today. And oh, it's always sweet sorrow to part.
You'll know you'll always remain in my heart. Good night, sleep tight. Well, that's the best of life. Here's a wish and a prayer that everything comes true. And now till we meet again. Adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Good night. And don't ever forget, you are truly loved. And with that, we say good night.
Good night.
Friends, there you have our show, hit songs and fashions through the years. We hope we brought you some pleasant memories. Now from all of our musical family, good wishes, good health, and good night.